Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Ladies Listen Up. What is your relationship with your money? Before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this information with somebody else. Today's episode, oh my goodness, you are going to want to go and grab a sister girlfriend and nudge her and say, hey, Dr. Liz over there, what would you call it? Rapping some rap or talking some talk? Or I know my girls are gonna get me and say, "Ma, what was that about? Rapping some rap or talking some talk?" Well, I don't know what the new saying is or whatever, but I'm about to give it to you really, really raw today. Okay? But before we get started, let's go into Grandma's cookie jar because Grandma's cookie jar just might need to have the hose connected to a fire extinguisher today. I'm telling you, today's topic is going to break it down for you. But before we get started with that, let's go into Grandma's cookie jar and see what Grandma's cookie jar got to say to us today. Do what makes you happy. Bam. And shine wherever you go. Ooh, I love this one. This one not going back in Grandma's cookie jar. It's going to sit right here so it can remind me today of exactly, do what makes you happy. Before we get into today's topic, today's topic is a serious topic. However, let's talk a little bit about do what makes you happy. First of all, let me wet my whistle because I need a little bit today. That was good, but that was a big gulp. Ooh, and that ginger, it hit me on both sides today, not just one side. It hit me on both sides today. All righty. So do what makes you happy. When I hear that, what it makes me think of is, you are not going to make everybody happy. You're not going to please everybody all the time because if you are, once I was told if you're making everybody happy, guess what? You're doing something wrong, right? Because everybody is not going to agree with you on everything. The healthy thing is that we should be able to agree to disagree and walk away and both parties be okay, right? That's not how it really is. Oftentimes, and most times, people are me by me. What's in it for me? Or how can I get the most out of it? It's not like what I talked about the other day when I talked about, pouring into one another. Oftentimes, people come to the table just to see what they can get for themselves. And if you get some scraps along the way, it's okay. And I just have not been able to grasp that type of a concept because that's not who I am. And the reason that I'm just today, I'm telling you all, I told you all earlier this week was really challenging for me. Well, this is a part of a vlog podcast. And so we're going to talk today about why it's important to get our estate together. And I know oftentimes we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to think about it. But you know what? If we understand that we have a birth date and we have a date that it's time for us to go on and go on, right? Or expiration date, or, whatever you want to call it. But if we can mentally get a grasp on, that's it. We have no choice in the matter, right? So that dash in between is the time that we have to make our life what we want it to be. We have that time in order for us to fulfill our purpose, and we all have a beautiful purpose. So if we can focus on, okay, I say Stephen Covey talks about beginning with the end in mind. If we all know, I used to, when I go and I would do a speak or a speaking engagement, I talk about this. So everybody close your eyes. Imagine yourself driving down a road. It's a beautiful sunny day. The warm sun is on your face. The wind is coming in warm in the car, and you're driving. You're in a good, peaceful place. You're just driving, beautiful scenery everywhere. And you're driving, and you get to the end of the road, and there's a church. You pull into the driveway, cars are everywhere. You walk in and you notice, this is a church. You walk into the church, you look to the right, you see people that you know, and you look to the left and you see people that you know. And as you continue to walk up the aisle, you realize you're at your own funeral. What are people or your own homegoing? I prefer to say homegoing. What are the people around you? What are they saying? What type of a life have you led? How did you treat people? And I think that's one of the things that, people they fall out at homegoings, and they, for me personally, there's a praise that goes on. It just automatically, if there's a connection that happens for me. I feel like treat people right. It's not about gathering all of this stuff. Yes, we're talking about assets and asset diversification, and absolutely it's important for us to do that, because the more we have, the more good that we can do. But whoever you are without money, you're going to be more of that with money, right? And so it's just important to take care of the people. So when we say do what makes you happy, it should not be at the cost of somebody else, right? But most people get into this bitterness. And so I experienced that the earlier part of the week. I talked about my beloved cousin, whom I love dearly. We were like sisters, and we just ran together. We were in different states, but a couple of the final memories that I have with her. She was a guest on the podcast. Actually, she was a co-host on the podcast, the Lizzie and Kizzy Doll Show. We had an amazing, last 5 years of her life. Didn't know that she was, getting ready to check out of here though. But I looked and I was able to look in her phone, and I was able to see all of the funny texts that we back and forth with each other. When I looked at my phone, that gave me peace. It gave me serenity. It gave me a sense that, I made her smile. She made me smile. So those are the things, it's the stuff that's not, people continue, and you see it in the news all the time, where people collecting stuff. The more stuff they collect, the more stuff they gotta have. So it's obviously it's not in the stuff, right? So when you think about asset diversification, and I was talking about this will thing, right? So my cousin didn't have a will, but she had beneficiaries and she had a power of attorney. And one thing that I learned is that the power of attorney dies when the person dies. Then the beneficiaries kick in. But hold on, there's one more caveat to that. The next of kin kicks in, and they have the power to execute, right? The person's estate, unless you have a will. And so if you die without a will, that means the court has to appoint someone called an administrator to handle the affairs. That means make inventory, that means pay the tax, and that means finally distribute everything. So if we're talking about building this asset diversification portfolio, and we're building it for our children's children, or we're building it, this is all a part of life that we don't get a chance to be taught. So today I want to be Auntie TT, right? Auntie TT sitting y'all down and saying, listen, these are the things that we're not taught that we need to know. We need to know why it's important to estate plan. Don't just leave it, well, I'm going to be gone. I hear people say, I'm going to be gone. Don't matter. It does matter. Everything that you're building, everything that you're growing, everything that you're creating, you're not doing it for naught, right? You're doing it for a reason. So appoint an executor to perform the integral role of maintaining your assets, distributing your belongings after you pass away. You can appoint that person in your will. Something, again, my cousin wanted certain things to go a certain way. She talked to people about it, but guess what? It was totally disrespected through her life, and it was totally disrespected at her death. And, appointing one person as a beneficiary amongst others that don't agree, that have different mindsets, different thought processes, different, all of that, it creates a calamity. So again, no matter, if you want your last wishes to be respected, you have to put it in a will, and you have to make sure that you appoint an executor. Think about some of the wealthiest people, or some of the wealthy people like Jimi Hendrix. There was a 30-year battle over his estate, right? Bob Marley, all of these people passed away with no will. Bob Marley, $30 million estate, no will. Okay, now I can't really completely pronounce the name, but I'm gonna do my best. Salvatore Philip, which was Sonny Bono, right? He had a love child that popped up when he passed away. Well, what do we do about that? How many people have, what do you call it, dual lives, right? How many people that that you don't even know that they're living a double life, and then when they pass away, you got everybody showing up, the girlfriends that nobody knew about, then the wife, I guess you call it what, sister girlfriends? I don't know, And we don't know why people do the things that they do. But again, I'm not saying this about Sonny Bono. I'm just saying the love child popped up, and now we can, what we do, right? Now you have the courts and everybody else, probate and all this involved. Okay. Pablo Picasso, he had a fortune in assets. Again, another $30 million, estimated $30 million estate, right? But he had his diversified. He had cash, he had artwork, he had gold, he had bonds. And this is what we mean about asset diversification. And oftentimes, we're so busy in the struggle of everyday life that we haven't even went over here to start even building these assets, or, well, not building, building them, but then how do we maintain them? But this is how we do it. These are the things, again, if you haven't been taught, we think it's behind the black curtain. Again, I told you yesterday or the other day that Richard Pryor is sitting behind that black curtain on the cot in the Wiz. But that's what the black curtain is all about. And I got excited when I found out, snatch it down. There's no black curtain. There's no secret. There's just things that we have not been taught. And once we're taught those things, we can now put them into place to protect ourselves. So as we're walking around building, we know how to protect ourselves, right? Michael Jackson's estate, his estate continued to generate more and more because his estate generated $242 or estimated $242 million after his death. So what was his estate worth before that? We have Howard Hughes. He had somebody show up with a forged will. Okay, they showed up with a forged will, and eventually his assets his estate was divided among 22 different cousins. Aretha Franklin, our beloved dear Aretha Franklin. We know what the story about, no will, or the will that they found allegedly under the couch and handwritten. So we think these things about people with all of this money. We have this fairy tale fascination with that. But it's simple. No matter whether your estate is vast or your estate is small, what do you want? This is the only time that you'll be respected is if you write it down, right, and make it plain. Amy Winehouse, no will, right? The huge one that I want to talk about is Prince. Prince, his estate, they said $100 to $300 million. The judge called Prince's estate personal and corporate mayhem. His asset diversification included intellectual property rights. It included unreleased music, fine art, memorabilia, 8 vehicles, 67 gold bars. He understood the value of gold. 67 gold bars and much, much more. So man, oh man, when I say, it's important for us to understand all of these steps. Yeah, it might seem like a lot, but guess what? That's why we have our notebooks. That's why we take our notebook and we create a reference tool, right? You create a reference tool, divide it all up, start writing this stuff down. You don't have to keep all this stuff in your mind, because I'll tell you, if I had to keep it in my mind, we're not even going to talk about me right now, but writing everything down and keeping a note of it, and then taking things one bite at a time. I want to talk to you just a little bit about, and I wrote a couple things down because I said, you know what, I want to make sure that I check mark these things, because I was infuriated because you may think that your family is on one accord. Okay, well, I'm gonna put that in air quotes, right? But then you get to somebody's, final will, and what they asked for, it wasn't written in the will, but what they asked for, and then because of your own personal issues or insecurities or jealousies or the way that you treated the person, your guilt or what have you, you spew that on somebody else. And so that's what happened to me, and I just got really upset about it. Even down to the last moment where they were actually going to move my cousin from one, I can't even think of what do you call it at this time. I got myself all heated up, but they were going to move her from one mausoleum to the other. And once again, I was excluded. And why was I excluded? The question is still out, but I know intentionally, and that's craziness to me. Why can't we just console one another, heal our wounds, remember the wonderful things about each other, and then keep moving, right? And love on each other in every moment that we can. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about trust before we wrap up today. I know today was a little bit more of a deep, it wasn't a rant for me, but it was me thinking and learning it's important that we do these steps so that things. When my mother passed away, my brother and myself, the only two siblings left, we loved on one another. So for that time, we there was no, it's whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want. How was she like that? The goal was to respect my mother, and that's what we did. So all of these hangups and stuff that other people have, I don't even know how to yell it loud enough. Get rid of it, right? So let's talk again about the will. The will is the last will and testament. It lets you distribute your assets, many of your money, your belongings to your beneficiaries the way that you see fit, right? But it has to be in a will, and you have to appoint somebody as the executor, right? That's important. See, it's taught, but it's not. Sometimes it's just not passed down, and sometimes it's not taught, right? There are different types of trust, and I'll hit on this a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap this up for today. But there are many trusts, and so and we'll bring some information out from some financial, industry experts to help us to understand as we talk more about the will. And the will is one of the asset classes that oftentimes we look over, and that's one of the more important ones. And it's okay. I mean, this is life. There are revocable trusts, irrevocable trust, living trust, bypass trust, charitable trust, family trust, generation skip trust, joint trust, life insurance trust, bear trust, Q-tip trust, special needs trust, and spendthrift trust. And so the trust can help you to, or set up different terms to help you be able to take advantage of like tax advantages and help you with asset protection. So these words are not, that you haven't heard of. And remember, we talked earlier about once you expand your brain, it never comes back to its original size. So we're pouring this information in, adding value, so you will really understand why it's important to be a part of, if not the Smart Money Circle, which is the one that we're a part of. It's not the Smart Money Circle, but educate yourself on these things that you need to know and pass it down to your children, generation to generation. So I know today was a rare form, but sometimes you can walk through life and somebody will prick that button or prick that part to make your hair stand up. And then it's not how we react, it's how we respond. And we respond with dignity. All righty. Listen, learn, and leverage this information. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this information with somebody else, and no matter what somebody does, you are always the one in control of how you respond. Don't let them knock you off your square. All righty. Y'all stay fearless. Bye for now.